Go.
So hello and welcome to the October 2023 Basic Saturday Sampler here close to home in Southington. So beginning Saturday, October 21st at 10 a.m., you can begin to bring in your finished September basic blocks to get the October kit free. And you will have until October 31st to do so. On the close-to-home-stores.com website, you will find an extensive listing of new, pre-owned, and classroom machines at excellent pricing. They are effective now until they are sold or gone. The Southington location is now offering Saturday classes. We have a quick, crazy quilt for you to do or a tuffet. So please come in and check out what we have to offer here at Close to Home in Southington. Let's get busy with October's basic block. We are looking at a simple 9-patch made up of half square triangles and flying geese. This unit here is a yellow body with white wing flying geese and a orange body white wing flying geese. These are 2x4 finished blocks, and we're going to put them together to be 4x4. So pretty simple. We've done half square triangles before. We're going to concentrate on the flying geese. This is the exact same ruler as we use in the borders. The only difference is the borders are 4x8 and the smaller ones are 2x4. All right. So our cutting chart over here, we have the white. We're going to take a section of the white. It's 7-inch and 7-inch. We need 2 squares. This is part of our flying geese wings. The next row is going to be 4 7/8 wide. 2 of these are going to have lines drawn on them to make our half square triangles with the multi-blue, as you can see here. So those are my 4 7/8. And the 4.5 white is our center block. Can't forget that one. And then simply the bodies of our flying geese are going to be cut at 5.5. So let's cut. I've already pre-starched using Mary Ellen's Best Press. And real quick on the tools, it is the Eleanor Burns Quilt in a Day ruler. And this is the large. It's a 4x8, and on this side is 2x4. I don't want you to confuse it with the small flying geese ruler, which is 3x6 or 1.5x3. This is not the ruler we need today. For October, we will be using the large flying geese ruler by Eleanor Burns. Okay? So let's go ahead and cut our wings, which are 7-inch squares. So I have a very long piece. I'm going to trim it up, so I only have an 8.5 by 12.5-inch ruler. So the easiest way for me to cut 7 inches is to fold it in half. Where it's folded, find a nice straight line on my ruler. So I'm taking this dashed line that goes right across the fold, and now when I cut, I know this is going to be nice and straight and even. All right, so we're going to run this around, and we're going to cut a 7-inch strip. So let's count over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to put my solid line on the cut mark, hold on to my ruler, and give it another cut. Okay, so I have a 7-inch long rectangle. I'll get to that in a second. Next thing I want to do is cut this at 4 7/8. That was the next thing I asked you to cut. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and as we go through these, we know the longest line is a half. Okay, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the little dot or the 8th mark right before the 5. So I'm just going to lay that right on the 7/8 mark. 4 7/8, and go ahead and trim that away. All right. So I'll put that aside, go back to my 7. So on this, I need a 7-inch. And remember, I folded this so I can cut it. This one was kind of long. Yours and the kit's will be just a tad shorter. So now that I've trimmed off this side, I have a nice straight corner to put my ruler in. And I need 7 inches. So even where the dark line, where that solid line is, I could use that line, I could use that line, I could use that line. It really doesn't matter as long as your solid line is on the top, the 7-inch mark is down where I just cut, and a nice solid line is on the bottom. So here we are, we have 2 7-inch squares. All right, I want to make sure that they are right sides up for the next step. And these are 5.5, so let's cut the body just the same way. We're going to straighten it up. I don't have a fold. My whole piece of fabric fits under here, so I'm just going to kind of try not to waste too much, as long as I get a little yellow and a little orange to get that straightened up. This time I need 5.5. So instead of counting over from the whole numbers, I'm going to utilize the 1/2 inch on my ruler. So I'm actually going to turn this around, and this is great when you have to cut anything that's a half, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, whatever. In this case, it's 5.5. So here's my 1/2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you look at the number in the black, you're looking right at 5.5. So that's another way to know that you're on the right mark. All right, so hold the ruler, put your rotary cutter down, push away, straight ahead, one motion. All right, so I have a 5.5-inch rectangle that will never cross. They are parallel lines. So what I'm going to do now is cut this into a square. Just like the 7, I'm layering this ruler on any line right across the top of my cut mark that I just did. Making sure that the 1/2 and the 1/2, that it's marked down here. I'm nice and level. And I'm going to go ahead and cut a 5.5 square. And here it is. Here's the black line going straight across. Here's my 5.5 corner going straight down my ruler, and the 5.5 mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 right here is coming out this edge. So I know that all these corners are now 90 degrees. All right, so let's go ahead and start making our flying geese. I'm going to make one set for you, but you're going to do the same for each one. So let's do yellow. So I'm going to put these right sides together. This one will go right side together on that one. And what we want to do is center this the best we can inside, on top of that white. And when I place my ruler in the corner of the white, it should also intersect the corner of the yellow. And you want to try to get that as close as possible. And go ahead and draw your line. I'm using a friction pen. It's heat erasable. It will come out as soon as I hit it with the iron. And I'm only drawing my line up to the white, just past the corners of the yellow. So now, if you want, you can put a pin on either side of this, and we're going to take this over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch on that side of the line. We're going to flip it around and sew a 1/4 inch on this side of the line. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And again, when I start and stop, I'm only sewing where the white joins with the yellow or orange, depending which one you're doing. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and sew. And we'll Make sure I get both of these. Nice 1/4 inch. Even though we're going to trim these, we still want to make sure that we're sewing nice and straight. We're using, if we have a guide on our 1/4 inch foot, we're going to pretend that this pen marker, not pen, this friction marker line is the edge of our fabric. And we want to make sure that we do sew a nice 1/4 inch. So let's stop here. I'll needle up, and if I had the orange, I could then continue to do the orange and chain piece. I'm just going to flip these around and go ahead and sew this one. Okay, so once those are sewn, we're going to go ahead and cut on the solid line. You make 4 at a time on this. It's really quite easy. So let's cut exactly the line that we just drew. I can place my ruler back on it, hold on to it, and we're just going to cut these 2 units apart. When we press, we're going to press with the larger triangle up, because we want to press toward the larger triangle. Now look at how these have these little wings that fold over at a 1/4 inch here. You have to look at that because that's very important. And this side as well. As soon as I press this, I will have my little tails hanging off this side as well. All right, so let me press this. I have to do both of them. Nice pressing all the way over. It's very important which way you press, because when it comes time to trim your blocks, you want to have them nice and pressed. Okay, so again, I have that little tail extending out and curled under at a 1/4 inch. Okay. So this is where people kind of lose it. They don't understand that there is actually a square here. If I took off these 2 extensions, this is a square. I know there's more white than yellow, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this square and we're going to place it here, but they're opposite colors. So the yellow goes in this corner and the white in this corner. So I'm basically just going to take it like this. I'm going to match up this corner, match up this corner, and you'll notice, whoops, all that pressing didn't really work good. And you'll notice that I have these tails hanging off in here, this corner, and that this seam does not touch this seam. They're not locked like this. They're literally just put right on top of each other. So once we get those into a square, we're going to draw another line. These are parallel lines. So we're going to go ahead and draw a perpendicular line from the corner to the corner over those 2 seams we just made. And let's go back and sew it a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on that side. Okay. When it gets down to where the seams are parallel, you want to make sure that the one underneath doesn't flip on you. Keep them nice and flat, and if you press them real well, they should stay pretty flat. This is going to sew all the way off the fabric, all the way to the end. Don't stop till you get to the end. And then we'll go ahead and put this one in. And again, a 1/4 inch from that line. And now, after you're done with these, you'll be able to get your borders done. You'll be able to make all those flying geese using the squares for the large flying geese, which is 8x4. All right, so here we are at this step. I sewed 1/4 inch on either side of the line I drew, which was red right down the center, and now I'm going to cut on that line right down the center, the same one I drew. All right, so now we have 2 more units. The thing about this is when I press this, I need the bodies of the geese to go lay toward the wings. So this one's getting pressed toward the white, and this one's getting pressed toward the white, but you can see what happens. I have a little bit of a twist here. So all we're gonna do is take a little snip into that seam allowance right up to the thread. So I'm just going to take a little snip and cut right to the edge. So right between those 2 seams, as you can see. All right. All right, so let's press this. Let me correct that little one. I'm pressing that one toward the wings. The white is the wings, the yellow is the body of the geese. I'm going to flip it around and then press this one. All right, a little bit of heat. If you want, you can hit it from this side as well. All right, we gotta trim it now. This is the very last step, and this is where that ruler comes in so handy. So we're gonna take our ruler, and as you can see, I have red lines, but on your ruler they might be black lines. But this is the 2x4. So this is the, on the end of the ruler, this is the flying geese part that we want to look at. And that red line or black line is going to sit right on the seam line of that body, between the body and the wings. And I'm going to cut all the way around all 4 sides. So 3 the first time, and then I'm going to flip it around. Do you notice how these red lines come all the way down and intersect halfway between the white and the yellow? That's really important that these get right into those corners. So the first thing I like to do is just cut it in half. And then I'll go up this way, and if I don't have my rotary cutter with me or my rotating mat, I'll just go ahead and flip this around. And it doesn't matter which way I go. I'm still lined up with the line I cut, lined up. This is coming into the corner. This is now coming into the corner, and I can trim these 2 sides. Okay, so I'm just going to hold on to it. Sometimes InvisiGrip by OmniGrid works really well on these rulers. It stops them from shifting. So here's number 1 from that set. We're going to do the exact same thing. Going to put our ruler right in here. Hold on to it. And trim all 4 sides. So I'm going to flip this one around, place it right here. That green goes right into the corner of my seam. This corner comes right out at the corner between the yellow and the white. And you can see that's going to be really nice when you go to sew that to your next block. It's going to have a nice 1/4 inch seam. If it was too much white or too much yellow, you might get something a little cut off. So there's 2 here. You're going to do the exact same thing. Snip the seam allowance, trim, trim, and do the same thing to the yellow. Once you get your flying geese made, we're going to create these flying geese units. And what I did is I sewed the orange on top of the yellow. So it was easier when I had these 2 to put the yellow on top, and I can see exactly at my 1/4 inch where my two seams intersect because the seam allowances are pressed to the outer side. So it's a really nice way to check to see that you don't lose your point there. And I also pressed it to the orange. All right, if you have any questions, of course you can come into the store, ask us. Hopefully this will get you motivated to get some of your borders done on the basic 2023 block of the month. Thank you for watching and have a great day.